Frank Darabont is here. He is one of only 6 filmmakers whose first 2 feature films received Oscar nominations for Best Picture. They are The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, both prison dramas. His latest film, The Majestic, marks a change of course. It recalls movies of a bygone era, including the works of Frank Capra, but also explores a bleak time in Hollywood history. It stars Jim Carrey as a Hollywood screenwriter blacklisted in the 1950s, and here is a clip.
Or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances.
You will not presume to lecture this committee,
That's the First Amendment, Mr. Chairman. It's everything we're about, if only we'd live up to it.
I am pleased to welcome Frank Darabont back to this table. I am especially pleased to have him here. We like filmmakers. That's what it is. We like filmmakers.
I'm glad of that. It's nice to be back.
You just watched me, as we taped this, interview Edmund Mars, who just did a book about Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes.
Second volume of a projected 3-volume story here. In fact, I still have it on my desk. Theodore Rex's Edmund Mars book. And you said to me, I carry...
erudite man, obviously.
You said to me, I carry around a quote.
I do.
Yeah. Let me hear it.
All right.
Because if you carry around a quote in your wallet, it says something about you, sir.
Well, let's. This was not planned.
Right. Absolutely.
I happen to carry this in my wallet at all times because I believe so strongly in the incredibly articulate sentiment of this. Teddy Roosevelt said, "It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled. Credit belongs to the man who really was in the arena, his face marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs to come short and short again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. It is the man who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasm and knows the great devotion, who spends himself on a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of great achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and cruel souls who know neither victory nor defeat." And I want to call every critic that ever gave me a bad review and read this to them.
Is it there because it expresses a different philosophy as much as it does simply to keep your eyes on the goal, which is to go out there and knowing you're taking your shots, and you're going to create something. It won't be loved by everybody, but that's what the purpose is, rather than sort of to say, take this critics. It's more positive for you.
Absolutely. It's enormously stirring, a very positive sentiment, and it really is very inspirational to me. And really, I think the intent of it is get out there and dare to achieve greatly. And if you go down in flames, that's okay, because it's only the people who dare greatly who leave a mark. And here's Mr. Roosevelt, who has books written about him.
Yeah, exactly. Was Majestic a risk for you because Shawshank and Green Mile are very different films, although there is about those two and this, there is a kind of poetry about heroism.
Yes. I think all 3 of those movies share one thing in common, a sort of thematic element in common, which is the notion that one can become a hero in one's own life.
One can rise to the occasion
and exceed the challenges as they are presented, even though they might be enormous, great challenges. And that's something else I very much believe in. And clearly, this one sort of thematic element keeps coming up in my work again and again.
This movie, how did it come into being?
Very prosaic sort of beginning for this one. I have a dear buddy of mine, Mike Sloan, who went to high school together, Hollywood High.
Right.
Back in the, he was class of '76, I was class of '77,
right.
And he's been one of my faithful critics, and I use that word, with respect, because it's important for a writer, and I've been a screenwriter for many years now. It's important for a writer to have a small stable of critics who will say, "Yeah, good work, but have you considered this or whatnot?" Anyway, and I've done the same for him. So one night, he leaves this screenplay on my doorstep with a note saying, "What do you think?" And I read it that night, and I called him back the next morning, and I said, "I think I want to make it."
Wow.
And that was, I think, quite a surprise for him. I think he's still surprised.
That it's been made.
That it's been made, that I actually meant it.
What was it about the story, the screenplay, that so turned you on?
Well, there's so much, there's a lot of layers going on. There is certainly that element of being a hero in your own life, of being challenged to be the better self, you know. But also, it says something, a few things about our country that I felt were very much worth saying. And I'm a big advocate of the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights. So it also delved into that. At its heart, though, it's this beautiful romance. Yeah. It's this love story between this guy and this girl, and this guy in this town, and this guy and
this guy who finds. I mean, I think the best thing about it to me is a guy who finds himself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Through a whole circumstances, finds himself and finds something. He finds his better angels.
Yes. And find something worth standing up and being counted for. Really what it is it rang the Frank Capra bell for me. And Capra has been a huge influence on me as a filmmaker and in my life.
What is the Frank Capra bell when you say that?
There's something about Capra's work that puts forth unashamedly, uncynically, this proposition that we can strive to be better than we are, that we can be decent to one another, that we can believe in certain ideals and stand up and be counted for them. He had a way of just being unabashedly emotional in his work, and I've always responded to that. I'm not the hippest guy on the block, you know. Irony has its place, but when I go to see a movie, I want to feel something. So Capra's work always, like, bam, got me right in the heart. And I've always had it in mind that if I got the chance to sort of pay back this karmic debt to Mr. Capra, that I would, you know, to get a chance to do what might have been a Frank Capra film was really too tasty to turn down. You know? Okay, so there's no Jimmy Stewart available. Yeah, so we go to the other Jimmy. So okay, no, was it that quick? If you think Capra, you think Stewart. Yeah. And you're thinking Capra already, so you're thinking of a character like Stewart, probably. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Very much so. But why is it inexorably that you go to Jim Carrey? Jim. Odd as a choice it might be on the surface of it, has always reminded me of a young Jimmy Stewart in the quieter moments of his other films. Obviously not where he's talking out of his butt, or, you know. Right. I mean, in between the big wacky moments, I've always gotten this vibe off of him that was like, gosh, why is he reminding me of a young Jimmy Stewart? It's something about his essence, his sincerity, I suppose. Certainly something to do with his physicality. Yeah. And I thought if Jim Carrey were at a place in his life where he was really in the mood to try something different here, totally stripped down kind of acting, if he were willing to put aside this lovely bag of tricks that he's so well known for and has made him so successful, and come from a completely sea-level kind of place as an actor, then we might have something here. And Jim read the script, and as it turns out, is also a huge Capra fan, worships Jimmy Stewart, and was right at the point in his life where he was looking for something like this to do, where he could put those lovely tricks aside and just be himself. And I'm terribly proud of him, because it was a rather courageous thing for him to do, and I think he's done it extremely well. He's really surprised audiences with this performance. Reading, you know, you have these test screenings, and reading some of these cards are really delightful, because they'll say, oh my gosh, Jim Carrey wasn't Jim Carrey in this movie. Well, actually, it's the closest to Jim I think you'll ever see on screen. This is the guy that I know when I talk to him across the table. He actually uses similar language to you in terms of
stripping down,
Oh, yeah.
putting the bag of tricks aside,
Oh, yeah.
and coming to sea level. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the same kinds of terminologies he uses.
This probably springs from our very first conversation that we ever had when I met with him on this. And he knew going in that this was really the task ahead. And we spoke literally in these terms, because if there was any sense of falsity to his performance, the whole thing would go, spiraling down in flames, I thought. And I remember saying to him, and he's recounted this. If I'm repeating what he said, forgive me. I said to him, "Jim, you're like a home run hitter. But to play this game, you have to learn a different swing."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, I know, I get it. I'm there. I want to do this." And it was completely, I'm sure he told you, completely nerve-wracking for him. But he's done amazing stuff.
Now, did you have to constantly remind him, of where you guys had decided he had to be in order to keep him there? Because
No, because he came in with this knowledge, with this foreknowledge, and he's a very smart man, and he's very fiercely committed actor, really. People, probably don't realize that about him, but he's like astonishingly committed to his craft. So he came in and really ready to embrace this, even if it terrified him to do it. So working with him on the set for me was really no different than working with any other actor, whether it's Martin Landau or Laurie Holden or David Ogden Stiers.
Or Tom Hanks.
Or Tom Hanks, which is literally just modulating the performance a bit. You pull him aside and you say, that might have been a little too big, this moment felt a little false, or that moment was lovely, it felt honest, Yeah,
just give him some benchmarks.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
Roll tape. Here's a clip from the Majestic.
Is there anything I can do to help you with that?
Well, yeah, but it's something that only we knew about.
Well, tell me.
Oh, no. I think I'd rather die
Come
first.
on, your father said any little thing could jog my memory.
This was another one of those little gifts that life provides. One day, Anna Garduno, who's my dear friend, another alumnus of Hollywood High School, she works with me now. She's my president of production of my production company, and she goes to acting class because she did that for years and still loves to do that. And one day, she came in and she said, "I saw a girl in my acting class last night who is Adele. You have to have her in." I said, "Okay, I trust Anna's judgment implicitly." So I had Loriana, met her, and she was one of the first people. She was the first person I met actually for the cast, certainly for that role. And it took about 7 months, but she finally got the part.
Now, why did it take 7 months? You had to convince the studio, or was it your call totally?
No, it was my call totally. It's a wonderful studio to work for, Castle Rock, the same folks I made Green Mile and Shawshank for. And they never, ever force a creative decision down my throat. But when you're responsible for their investment, you want to do due diligence in terms of casting. Right. So we saw everybody, or it seemed like everybody anyway. A lot of ladies wanted to play this part.
I can imagine. And with a lot more film credit.
With a lot more film credits, a lot more sort of public visibility, and Laurie beat the pants off of all of them.
Really?
It's not that there weren't some lovely, wonderful actresses who came in and gave great readings, etc. But Laurie really just had this lock on this character and on this performance, and she was fabulous. And her chemistry with Jim was the best of anybody who came in. She's a very special actress, this girl, and really incredibly versatile. More versatile than this movie lets her show, by the way.
Yeah, but you know what that story tells to me? I don't know how much she's done before, but it says to me, and I think Jim touched on this in this conversation we had about his own career. It is the notion that how many good, talented people that are dependent on having an opportunity to express themselves, a stage or a film, to express themselves.
Yeah.
Many who never get the chance in any significant way.
Yeah.
It's not a case where talent outs always.
No.
Talent outs for the most part, I believe. But in this case, there's so few openings.
No.
And it's such a roll of the dice to make a film that so many factors come in that is much harder for what you just described to happen,
Yeah.
and what you described happen proves how many people are out there who have real talent.
Oh yeah, and I see a lot of them when I'm reading for a movie. A lot of, for every role you cast, there's 10 other worthy actors out there who didn't get the part, and that's what I find emotionally difficult about it. But it's also a great example, certainly in Laurie's case. It's a great example of the fact that one must continue to strive. One must continue.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. Persistence and tenacity really leads the way, and if you have the talent, then and if you generate the luck, which persistence tends to do, it can fall in step for you. But the people who don't, you know, I mean, it took me 9 years before I was able to actually make my living as a screenwriter. Really tough, lean years too.
Yeah.
But I never gave up, and I've had this joke for years, and it's actually not that much of a joke, which is there might be more talented screenwriters and directors out there working in Burger Kings across the nation who never found out that they had the ability to do it because they didn't have the belief and the persistence and the follow through to do it. You know.
It reminds me of that old line about 90% of the game is getting in the arena.
Yes. Yeah. And being willing to you know, to shed some blood.
That's right.
And take a few hits.
Yeah. Tell me, before we leave acting, Jim Carrey as an actor, I mean, what is it that you think brings to the screen? What is his essential quality? And it may vary from film to film to film, but just speak to...
It definitely does, and that was going to be my answer, actually, because it feels to me like this role really is a very different for him. He's been in this reinvented really as a handsome, old-fashioned, romantic leading man kind of movie star. And the ladies in the audience are really responding to it, too. They look at it, and it's like they're seeing Jimmy Stewart or seeing, you know, one of those guys. And it's fantastically thrilling for me because he's only been known really for a certain kind of thing up till now. I think this really redefines him in a way. But I think, to answer the question fairly, I think the thing that he carries with him from role to role is this vulnerability. And you see it in those other roles. He has a vulnerability.
That's the common denominator of his...
I believe so. I believe so. Dear friend of mine, Chuck Russell, directed Jim in The Mask. And yeah, there was a lot of funny stuff when his face was green, but it was, I think, the in-between stuff where he was able to play the vulnerable guy trying to figure things out. One of my favorite lines in the movie, one guy says, "Who are you really?"
Yeah, right.
And Jim says, "Just a guy trying to figure things out." That's the essence, I think, of why we like Jim and why we respond to him.
Take a look at this. One more clip. This is after the story is now well known, in which a screenwriter in Hollywood knows that he is being investigated for some little meeting he'd attended because he was after the attention of a young woman, and then the focus comes to him. He's a B screenwriter. He has that drunken night in response to that and gets in an accident and has amnesia and goes to a small town, and at that small town he looks like someone who was a hero of that small town and went off to war and didn't come back, and they think he's come back, and so he begins to believe or to let that go for a moment because it's a different experience for him, and then he comes to the conclusion and he is found out. Take a look at this scene where Peter is found out and he goes to say goodbye to the aforementioned Adele at the cemetery, and she wants to know what he's going to say at this famous climactic scene, which will be testimony that he gives before the House Un-American Activities Committee. With that long introduction, here is the clip.
But that doesn't make the game any less rigged. There's a reason they call it a witch hunt.
And there's such a thing as burden of proof, innocence before guilt.
Maybe in law school. But the rest of us have to live in the real world. And in the real world, I mess with these guys, I go to jail.
All the more reason to fight them.
Let me just mention one last thing before we go out of here, is that there is a wonderful performance by Martin Landau.
Yes, yes. It would not be a show without mentioning Martin, because his performance as the gentleman in this small town who owns this shuttered, rundown, down on its heels movie palace, the Majestic of the title, who mistakes Jim as his long-lost son.
Who was a hero.
Who was a hero during the war and was missing in action, presumed dead. A Medal of Honor winner.
And whose girlfriend was the aforementioned Adele.
And whose girlfriend was... Yes, whose girlfriend was. He was engaged to be married before they shipped out. Martin, as the father of this piece, is very special. He's really, really terrific, and what a pleasure that was, working with him.
Yeah, I would think in the end, I mean, one of the great things about being a director, would seem to me, is that you know lots of talented people. Some you can go pick, like you did with Laurie Holden, who's had limited exposure, and some, like Martin Landau, who you know will just be perfect. You can give an opportunity and create these magnificent brews because you can put all this stuff together.
It's the ensemble tapestry that I find most satisfying when I'm shooting and making a film. To be able to draw on a pool of enormously talented actors that I've either long admired or worked with before. James Whitmore.
Right. Oh, he was wonderful.
Oh, gosh,
wonderful.
Is he good. A national treasure he is. Jeffrey DeMunn, who plays the mayor of the town. To be able to, or David Ogden Stiers, never worked with, but long admired.
Right.
Martin Landau, same thing. There's a real comfort level in that, but I also get just this nutty thrill out of getting the few people into the cast that you've never really seen before. In Green Mile, it was Michael Clark Duncan and Doug Hutchison and Sam Rockwell. And in this, I joke with her, I tell Laurie that she's the Michael Clark Duncan of this movie.
Yeah, right.
To give those people really a shot because they deserve it, and they're the best actors for the role, and to give them a forum to shine, and to see them then truly shine.
What are you doing next?
Taking a vacation.
You don't know?
Well,
You don't know? Can't tell what?
No. I can. I'm going to take a couple of years away from directing and take a couple of writing years because I owe some scripts.
You owe some scripts?
I owe some scripts.
You mean you promised somebody?
Oh yeah.
Or you owe it to yourself?
Well, a little bit of both. I've owed Castle Rock a couple of scripts for 5 or 6 years now, but these two movies got in the way. You know, Green Mile and this.
Yeah. So why can't you just say, look, I'll write a script for you and we'll make the movie for you and I'll direct? What's wrong with that?
Well, because I actually want to take a few years just to write, because I'm burned out right now.
Oh, really? So writing, the chance to sort of not have to worry about all the big picture and just simply write the picture.
Yes, bingo, exactly. Because between Green Mile and this, they were pretty much back to back, and it's been a really intense 5 years. And I don't know how some of these guys do it as directors, going from movie to movie to movie, because it pretty much kicks my butt.
Really?
Yeah. But the one thing I'm really excited about is the possibility of adapting one of my all-time favorite books, very significant sociological piece of just poetic fiction, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury.
Is that right? You can do that?
I'm going to be adapting the script next year, and with any luck, knock on wood, I'll be directing it the year after.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And you already know who's going to star in it?
Not a clue.
All right.
Not a clue.
Frank Darabont, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Pleasure.
It's great to be here.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Frank Darabont, the director of The Majestic. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.